that Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will travel back to Moscow for more negotiations as soon as next week. He's also defending his special envoy after Bloomberg News published a transcript of an October call between Witkoff and a top aide to Russian leader Vladimir Putin. During that call, Witkoff seemed to coach the Russians on how to appeal to President Trump and sell him on a potential peace deal. Also during the call, Witkoff told his Russian counterpart that he would have wide discretion on the contours of a deal, even advising the Russians that Putin should speak with Trump before Ukrainian President Zelensky held talks with Trump at the White House.
Now, the transcript, quickly caused major concern among some Republicans on Capitol Hill. I mean, Republican Congressman Don Bacon called for Witkoff to be fired, writing, quote, "It is clear that Witkoff fully favors the Russians. He cannot be trusted to lead these negotiations. Would a Russian paid agent do less than he?" CNN's Kristen Holmes is live near Mar-a-Lago, where the president is spending the holiday. Obviously, strong words from the congressman there, Kristen. But how is the White House responding to these questions about Witkoff's interactions with the Kremlin?
Well, Boris and Omar, unsurprisingly, they are fully backing Witkoff. You do have to keep in mind that Witkoff is one of President Trump's most trusted advisors, and President Trump credits him and his son-in-law Jared Kushner with really negotiating and bringing home the ceasefire deal in the Middle East, as well as that hostage deal. So it's not surprising that we're hearing this from the White House and President Trump himself saying this is all part of standard negotiations. I'm sure he's saying the same kind of things to the Ukrainians who go back and forth. That's how you talk during a negotiation. But as you said, there are some major red flags that are being raised right now by Republicans on Capitol Hill. It's not just Don Bacon. We also heard from Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, who called this a, quote, major problem. So let's talk a little bit about what is actually in that transcript and what people are raising issue with. It wasn't just about the meeting with Zelensky. You start off the call, and it seems as though, as you noted, Witkoff is kind of coaching this aide on how Putin should talk to President Trump to start the conversation and to start kind of smoothing things over. Just remember, at this point, President Trump was saying almost every day that he was very disappointed and frustrated with Vladimir Putin. He says that Putin, in the call, when the two leaders talk, should essentially praise Trump for the Middle East ceasefire deal, saying that he stood by him. And what's interesting about that is that when we got the Kremlin's version of the readout of that call, it led with this idea that Putin had praised Trump at the beginning of the call. Now, on to the part about Zelensky. This is really notable for a number of reasons. One is that at that point, you were starting to hear President Trump really sound angry all the time with Russia, saying things like maybe the Ukrainians could win the war, maybe they could get back all of their territory. We know that President Zelensky was on his way to meeting with President Trump at the White House because he wanted to get a number of things from President Trump, but including these U.S. Tomahawk missiles, these long-range missiles that could go from Ukraine, from the front lines, deep into Russia, which was something Russia did not want. So during this phone call, here's what we have between these two people. We have Witkoff saying, and here's one more thing, Zelensky is coming to the White House on Friday. Yuri Yushkov says, I know that, and then laughs. Witkoff says, I will go to that meeting because they want me there, but I think if possible, we have the call with your boss before the Friday meeting. Okay, so here's what we know. They did have that call before the Friday meeting. It was a 2.5 hour long phone call. In that call, Putin was able to not only convince Trump not to give up those Tomahawks, to say don't give them to Zelensky, but additionally, we know that the next day, when President Trump met with Zelensky, his tone had notably shifted. He sounded less angry with Russia. And during that meeting, the closed-door session, it grew tense between Zelensky and Trump as Trump was trying to say that he needed to concede more territory to Russia to end the war. So a lot of changes there. And that's why you're seeing so much pushback in so many of these Republican congressmen as well as Democrats saying that this shows that the White House, Witkoff in particular, favors Russia over Ukraine, which they say sets up a place for Russia or puts them in a place where they can't succeed. Ukraine can't succeed.
Yeah, it's an interesting leak coming at a sensitive time. Kristen Holmes traveling with the president in West Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you so much. So it's the biggest home-cooked meal of the year, but many Americans are opting out. What more Americans are doing this year instead of cooking the turkey and stuffing at home for the holiday.